The following is a class on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Texts 10 through 12, given by His Holiness Srila Harikesa Swami, recorded on the 31st of May, 1987, in Buenos Aires.
When Vidura was invited by his elder brother, Dhritarashtra, for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state. So, although it is not generally well known, but usually very good instructions given to modern politicians or kings generally ends up in some kind of friction, because people are just not interested in receiving such good instructions. Basically, everybody is interested in something material which is going to advance the material cause. So therefore, good advice sometimes contradicts the material cause and works for a spiritual cause. And especially in relationship with the instructions sometimes given by spiritual master, a person will reject that because it does not satisfy one materially. Materially speaking, something may seem to be very nice, or something may seem to be not at all very nice. But when one acts from the point of view of material desire, he becomes entangled in the cycle of karma and has to suffer reactions. But when one takes a good advice, especially when it's offered without motivation, and follows that good advice, then generally all success is there, especially when that advice comes from spiritual master. Of course, one can take good advice from anybody. Even the dog can give you good advice sometime on how to be a good servant. Or the tree can give good advice on how to be very tolerant. But generally if we are not very humble, don't like good advice. We'd rather have something else which fulfills material desires. Therefore, sometimes the advice of spiritual master is not accepted. We've seen this often in relationship to devotees who want to manage their own lives, and the spiritual master gives them some advice, then they think, no, this is not very good. I don't accept that. Then later on, they suffer very much for that, because good advice means it's something you should do. So now Vidura was acting as the spiritual master to more or less degree of Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra was his elder brother, but he was also more foolish. And he knew that Vidura was more intelligent. He knew, in fact, he had a policy that he would not cause anything to occur unless Vidura agreed with it. If Vidura didn't agree, then Dhritarashtra would not allow that thing to pass as a law or whatever. Vidura's agreement was essential. So Dhritarashtra would not act unless Vidura agreed. But sometimes this Vidura would say something which Dhritarashtra didn't like. And because he was blind and old and stubborn and attached, he did not accept the advice of Vidura on some points. One of those points being the way in which he is dealing with the Pandavas. this point was the point which was most not followed by Dhritarashtra. So now, Vidura's qualifications are stated in this verse. That the advice of Vidura is well known by all. At that time, everybody knew Vidura's advice was good, first class. And the instructions were approved by all expert ministers of state. Those who were expert at the affairs of administration approved the expert arrangements of Vidura. But because Dhritarashtra was puffed up and unhumble, he wasn't willing to hear, at this point, Vidura telling him, give back to the Pandavas that which they deserve. The Pandavas deserve to have their kingdom returned. Give it back to them. Or at least give them these villages they ask for. But do something. Don't just allow your sons to cause this situation to just continue without any rectification. Do something. This is only the right thing. So, Vidura said it just like this. Text 11. Ajata shatro pratayachadayam chikshato dorvashaham tavagho sahanujo yatra trikodarahi swasanusha yatvam malam bibeshi. Vidura said, you must now return the legitimate share to Dhritarashtra, who has no enemies and who has been forbearing through untold sufferings due to your offenses. He is waiting with his younger brothers, among whom is the revengeful Bhima, breathing heavily like a snake. Surely you are afraid of him. Now, Vidura's statement here is very correct. First of all, he proclaims Yudhisthira to be tolerant and forbearing. These are very good qualities. Somebody who's tolerant and forbearing generally succeeds where one more in the mode of passion fails. So Yudhisthira suffered. He had no enemy, Ajatashatru. But sometimes people became envious of him. He didn't consider anybody his enemy, even if they wanted to cause him trouble. It's like Duryodhana had done many things to cause the Pandavas trouble. He once even fed Bhima poison cake, and then when Bhima went unconscious, bound him up with ropes and threw him in a river. Or when in that river there happened to be fish that ate people. So when those fish came to Bhima to eat him and started biting his body, this woke Bhima up. It didn't hurt him, but it woke him up. And then he realized he was under the water and bound in ropes. So then he broke loose from those ropes and came out, defeating the effect of the poison. So this was Duryodhana. Again, Duryodhana had sent many demoniac personalities to try to kill the Pandavas during their various stays in the forest. And he also set fire to the house of Lak. And there were various challenges which were illegal and improper. Always he was making trouble. Bhima remembered it all. Yudhisthira didn't want to remember it. Bhima remembered it all. And every minute he was thinking of Duryodhana. When he will break the back of that rascal. Actually, he was also thinking of Dushasana. He promised that he would rip out the heart of Dushasana and drink the blood. Actually, Bhima did that during the battle. He jumped on the cart chariot of Dusasan, knocking him out with a blow. Then he ripped out his heart with his bare hands and took it and drank the blood. Now he didn't really do like that. This was all for show. Actually, he let the blood run down the side, and he just put a little on his mouth so it would look like he did it, because he wouldn't do that either. But all the warriors, they thought that Bhima had turned into a mighty Rakshasa who wanted to devour them on the field of battle. And this demoralized them very much. Actually, Bhima was mainly responsible for killing the sons of Dhritarashtra. Bhima personally made the vow to kill all the sons of Dhritarashtra. And he was doing it. Dusasan was the more ecstatic of the destructions by Bhima. Then after he did this, he started jumping up and down on Dusasan's body until it became a pulp that could not be recognized as a human body anymore. This was highly, shall we say, demoralizing to the Kauravas. So this destruction was foretold here by Vidura, who said, "Aren't you afraid of Bhima, who's breathing heavily like a snake?" You know, the snakes, if you step on them, they never forget that. They're really envious fellows. If you step on a snake with your foot, you know, when you touch somebody with your foot, then this is considered a great insult. And then generally we attempt to touch the foot of that person to beg forgiveness, not the head. That's how you offer blessings. It's really hilarious to watch everybody do it here. But anyway, so at that time, when you step on the snake, he looks at you and makes an image of you. And always he's looking for that image so he can bite him. Snakes are so envious that if you kill a snake, it's the image of the one who's killing the snake stays on the eyes of the snake. And so the mate of the snake comes and looks in the eyes and sees who did it. Then, after seeing who did it, the mate goes and searches out that person, bites him. So the snake is a very good example. Once you cross the path of a snake, you never forget it. So it is not that Bhima is a snake, but rather he was breathing heavily like a snake because of the insults. And the example was very appropriate because Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana should catch the point that he's not going to forget it and that they're going to die. Well, they didn't catch the point. Now Vidura is going to try another kind of advice. First was the fear of the Pandavas. That didn't impress them. Didn't impress Duryodhana and company. Now he's going to try another kind of advice. Text 12. Patam stu devo bhagavan makundo grihitavan shakshati deva deva aste swapuryam yadu deva devo vinirjita shesha nrideva deva. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, has accepted the sons of Pritha as his kinsmen, and all the kings of the world are with Lord Shri Krishna. He is present in his home with all his family members, the kings and princes of the Yadu dynasty, who have conquered an unlimited number of rulers, and he is their Lord. Now, if that doesn't scare them, they are simply fools, which is the situation. Purport. Vidura gave Dhritarashtra very good counsel regarding political alliance with the sons of Pritha, the Pandavas. Actually, Vidura wanted to make an alliance. This alliance is something which is more desirable than war. After all, if you can make peace with somebody by making some kind of alliance, it's better than making war with somebody. It's a simple political principle. Therefore, some kind of alliance should be made in all circumstances, and when that's not possible, then some war can take place. The first thing Vidura said was that Lord Krishna was intimately related with them as their cousin, because Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is worshipable by all Brahmanas and demigods, who are the controllers of the universal affairs. Besides that, Lord Krishna and his family members, the royal order of the Yadu dynasty, were the conquerors of all kings of the world. Now, Krishna is Deva Deva. He's the Lord even of the demigods, or of the Brahmanas, or of all saintly personalities. He's superior. He is the one to whom all yagyas are offered, sacrificial performances. He is the power of the powerful, the source of the creation, the origin of all existence, the cause of all causes. Not one blade of grass moves without his sanction and sweet will. He's the supersoul within the heart. All of these points were brought up by Vidura. Here, this is a summary study of what Vidura said. But he brought up every point, glorifying Krishna's spiritual position, explaining who Krishna is, explaining how he's the origin of all power and potencies, explaining everything about Krishna. But they did not accept that. So then, they don't accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're in fairly bad shape. But then Vidura brought up the point that, all right, look, the Yadus, they've already conquered all the kings of the world. The only reason Maharaj Yudhisthira could perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. Rajasuya means that you're the emperor of the world. Everybody accepts you as the emperor of the world. So the reason why Maharaj Yudhisthira could do that was because the kings of the Yadu dynasty said, yes, we accept Maharaj Yudhisthira. No need to fight. He can be the king of the world. Were it to come down to a fight, Yadu dynasty is much more powerful than everybody. They were, after all, demigods who had taken birth on the earth planet to assist the Lord in his pastimes. So who's going to defeat all the demigods in battle? And they were the direct bodily descendants of Krishna. They weren't going to be defeated by any forces in the world. Therefore, the Yadus were a power which had to be reckoned with by the Kauravas. What if the Pandavas made political alliance with the Yadus? Wouldn't that cause the destruction of the Kurus? Therefore, because the kings had all been conquered by the Yadus, therefore Dhritarashtra should pay attention to that and be a little bit careful before he goes and accepts the position of enmity with the sons of Pritha. Now, they also weren't interested in that. Actually, that's the way of blindness. Blindness makes one uninterested in anything. One becomes totally uninterested in everything and anything. Doesn't care about good logic, reason, intelligent words, process, procedures, laws. Doesn't care at all about any of these things. One who's blinded simply cares for the satisfaction of the senses and nothing more. Such persons are blinded by lust. Lust is so powerful. It forces one to act in a certain way, and therefore one becomes blinded by that lusty desire and cannot see anymore what is correct, what is false. So Dhritarashtra, especially his sons, were blinded by the lusty desires to enjoy the position of unrivaled kings of the world. After all, it's no fun to have a position if there's always somebody who's challenging you to take over the position. Then it's just a fight. When one is in an unchallenged position, the situation is much more comfortable and acceptable. So they wanted an unrivaled position. No Pandavas, no rivals, no one better than them, by getting rid of everybody else. This is reminding one of the tactics used by modern dictatorships. Simply get rid of anyone who stands in the way of your predominance. So this concept was being utilized as a organizational principle by Duryodhana. But he should have realized that how is he going to get rid of the Pandavas when they have as friend the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Controller? How did Duryodhana think he was going to conquer them? But Duryodhana never thought about it. He was so blinded, he didn't even think about it, didn't even care. He just thought, we'll do it, don't worry, somehow or another. Why? Because we have to. That's all. He didn't even consider how. Maybe that it wasn't even possible. After all, an intelligent person, before he makes a plan, has to consider whether or not the plan has a possibility of succeeding. If it has no possibility of succeeding, then that plan will most likely fail. Therefore, he doesn't take it up. But if it has a possibility of succeeding, then he'll take it up. So why Duryodhana wanted to take up a plan which had no possibility of succeeding can only be explained as a product of lusty desires. It's the only explanation that can be given. Otherwise, any intelligent person would have tried to make peace with the Pandavas. So, now, peacefulness is something which can only be attained when one follows the Vedic injunctions. Peacefulness is only a product of acting under authority. When one is acting in a proper fashion, according to the Vedic authority, he becomes very peaceful because he then doesn't speculate. It is speculation which causes all trouble in this world. One starts to speculate and one gets in trouble. One speculates all the time. It is one of the major aspects of the activities of the mind. Mental speculation. And we find people are speculating left and right all the time. On every single issue, there's a speculation. But the real devotee doesn't like to speculate at all. He likes to simply follow some footstep previous authority. He doesn't accept speculation as a process for deriving knowledge. He accepts following as the process for deriving knowledge. So, therefore, he avoids mental speculation. Dhritarashtra should have followed Vidura, but he did not. He speculated. Duryodhana never followed anybody except maybe Karna's advice. Otherwise, he just didn't follow. He was told many times, don't do like this, do like this. But he only accepted those instructions he liked, and he rejected the others. We find this is one of the greatest defects in the disciples, that they accept those instructions which they like, and they reject those instructions they don't like. If the spiritual master is smiling at them and saying ha-ha jokes, then they like. And then if he gets on their case as being fools and rascals, then they don't like. In other words, spiritual master should be like a servant of the disciple to tell him what he wants to hear. Then the disciple will do something. Otherwise, forget it. So this is not very Krishna conscious, not very humble. In fact, it's the mentality which has got us here in the material world in the first place, and which will keep us here in the material world so long as we maintain it. Therefore, one should accept all things presented by the spiritual master, not some. Of course, spiritual master also expects that you use your brain. Like a funny example. It's like it is an injunction. When you see your spiritual master, you should pay obeisances. But if that's going to cause the spiritual master trouble, then you shouldn't do it. Just like once we were trying to enter into one airport in Russia. And we were trying to act like an innocent materialist, which is a little difficult, but we were really trying hard. And then some prospective disciples entered the airport and paid obeisances, which started a whole chain of events which were pretty unforgettable. But this is a question of using brain. There's another example, much less severe. When, for instance, you want to walk out of the door, so some very helpful disciple opens the door for you from the outside, then sees you, then pays obeisances in the door. Then you have to wait while he's going through Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna. Standing in the hallway. You cannot get out. You cannot move forward. You're stuck. So these are examples, simple examples, of how you should also use your brain. It's not that there are just injunctions and like a robot, one follows them. But one has to follow them in a proper fashion. But that does not mean you can pick and choose what you like. Just like, I think it was last night we mentioned about how yesterday morning, how the girls, the Kshatriya princesses may pick their own husbands in the Swayamvara ceremony. So this may have inspired the girls with ideas. But let us examine how this is not the case. First of all, they are Kshatriya princesses. They were the daughters of kings. Do we have any daughters of kings out there? Please raise your hand. We will arrange your Swayamvara. No daughters of kings. Oh, okay. So forget the Swayamvaras. But sometimes we hear one thing which we like very much. So then we accept this principle. And all the other ones we forget about. All the other principles, they're not very important. But this one principle becomes all of a sudden very important. Just like often we have these discussions about whether you can eat asafoetida on Ekadasi, or powdered sugar, because asafoetida is compounded with wheat flour, or powdered sugar is made with cornstarch. Therefore, everybody becomes so upset about this. But the same persons who are so much upset about this are usually those who are breaking the regulative principles. So, the little tiny little rule stuck off in the corner of obscurity becomes so big, and with life and death we have to follow it. And if somebody even dares to think of breaking this little insignificant rule, we make war with him in the kitchen. But the same person will go out and break the 4 big rules and think nothing of it. This is an example of the hypocrisy of picking and choosing what one will follow and what will not follow. Therefore, one should learn the art of being humble, especially if spiritual master directly gives one an instruction. One should just follow it, knowing that this is the best thing for me. Simple. Of course, it's only simple for the simple-minded. If the material senses say, no, 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 and then we even say to the spiritual master, no, 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 then only a fool will at that point still object. Of course, we have plenty of fools in this world. There's no lack. There's sufficient supply of fools. But the point is that one should understand what's best for him. Sometimes spiritual master will place one in a position, and one will not understand at all why, or what is the purpose. I remember myself, Prabhupada always was putting me in a position of responsibility, and I hated it like anything. I always slipped out as soon as I could. Always wanted to be irresponsible. Somehow, in those days, we just loved being irresponsible. It's just completely material, I would suppose. But then, they would always bring trouble. Then one day we decided, all right, he wants us to be responsible. Let us make our whole life and soul to become responsible, even though our whole desire is to be irresponsible. Let's become responsible and take care of something. So, after doing this, the whole life changed. It became very nice. So it is a question of surrender. And spiritual master, if he personally gets involved with somebody, will not just ask of you a little surrender. That we ask generally of everybody by our arrangements in the temple. But when something specific is there about you, it means big surrender. And one better be prepared. Just like sometimes devotees approach spiritual master for so many things. But they should understand they're getting near a fire. And they better be prepared to be burned if that is what is to happen. And one should know the instruction given will be something important. And one should be prepared to follow it. Therefore, one should never accept spiritual authority lightly, as a fad or a fashion, or something which can be accepted and rejected as one likes. But rather, spiritual authority should be accepted without speculation. And this will make one very satisfied. Otherwise, as soon as speculation starts, all kinds of troubles will develop, and peace will just simply not be there. So, let us try to learn how to be humble, submissive, careful in our understanding of the philosophy and the process of surrender. And in this way, all success will be there, even though we may not understand how. All right, Hare Krishna.